Hey, my love, and welcome back to the potty for our 100th episode. The 100th time. Well, maybe the 99th time I'm saying welcome back. I didn't say welcome back on the first episode, but this is the very first time I am saying to this man, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I put out on Instagram this idea of Harri and I doing a relationship Q&A to celebrate our 100th episode as a fun idea, and we got some amazing questions back. So here we are doing the thing, and I just want to say a massive thank you to you for being so willing, because I
Of
know
course.
this is not your standard situation. Have you been on a podcast before?
No, the first time.
Yeah, first
Yeah.
time. And you're very much doing this as a contribution to others and to the women who are interested in finding out the answers to their questions, and it feeling like something that benefits you. So thank you. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
you. Uh, One last thing I want to share before we dive in is that to amplify the excitement around reaching 100 episodes on the podcast, which, by the way, when I did a little bit of research, I think it was somewhere between 1% to 4% of podcasts reach 100 episodes and above.
Mm.
That's it. So we got to celebrate it. I am offering for this week and next 50% off my short course, do it yourself, self-paced. It's called Responding to Overwhelm, Fear and Anxiety. So check out the show notes. There's going to be a discount code in there for you so that you can get 50% off as my little gift and way to bring a little extra vibe to this situation. But we're going to dive in. How are you
Let's do
feeling
it.
about this?
I'm feeling good.
Feeling good. I was
Yeah.
feeling nervous, but I'm feeling good.
Let's do it.
What I've done is I've separated these questions out into three categories that sort of came in. And Harri hasn't seen any of these questions, by the way.
Nope.
The first category I've called like early dating questions. We got some questions about our first date and the earlier stages of dating and like how we figured out that it felt like a good match for both of us and it was right for both of us. And then some more questions came through that I've put in the category of sort of like established relationship questions that are around, how we resolve conflict or how we repair. So we'll dive into that. And then what did I call the third section? The third section is the third section. I don't have a category for that. And we might even do, I don't know if you'll be open to this. We'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes.
But there was some questions around more like online dating. So even like before we met, and I thought we could maybe do a whole episode on online dating if we don't get to those. I just want to make sure. Yeah. So we'll start off with some quick, easy, basic ones, and then we'll just deepen into it as we go.
Let's do it.
So the first question, you can answer this,
Sure.
was how long have we been together?
23rd of May 2024. So what's that?
Talk about accurate. It was, I think that makes it 8 months last week, but we forgot.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how long we've been together. That's since our first date. And it was really just on from there.
It was.
Mm.
Yeah.
The second question, are you similar ages and both into healthy eating and mindset?
Yes, we are. I'm, as you can see, a little older, but yeah, we're definitely into health.
Yeah.
Health and wellness.
So I'm pretty sure I'm 37.
You are definitely 37.
How old are you?
I will be turning 39 very soon. So let's just call it 38. Let's
In
just call it.
fact, no, this episode will go live before your birthday.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And both into healthy eating and mindset.
Definitely. But I have to say, I do like a chocolate and an ice cream. But yeah, let's just call it 80% healthy.
Yeah. I'm with you on the chocolate. Ice cream doesn't really pull me at all.
Yeah, I just love it too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I would say I feel like since we've met, you're more like 90% healthy eating now.
Yes. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we met, Harry probably ate out for 80% of his meal.
Probably more than 80%. Yeah.
Doesn't enjoy cooking.
Not
So
really, no.
that's something that shifted, which has been cool. Feel like you're satisfied in how you've answered that question? Feel complete?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I do.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So these are some more um, deeper questions. So this first one is, how deep in conversation and questions did you go in the first date? Or did you keep it general chat to get to know each other?
I think it was, general chat on the very first date, right? Was it?
No, I wouldn't personally say that it was surface level. But what I would say is that as we went to like second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth date, it definitely got deeper.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But I can remember you asking me questions like, what my goals are and like, do I envisage always living on the Sunshine Coast? Would
Yeah.
I ever live overseas?
Yeah.
Um, I remember there were definitely deeper questions asked.
Probably I just
For
do not
sure.
remember.
And I think our first date would have probably gone for 3 hours.
Yeah, it was about 3 hours. I remember the first date. And then from there on, yeah, don't really remember any other dates. But yeah, the first date was pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
obviously, good enough.
it was very good for me.
So our first date was on a Thursday, and Thursdays are actually the day that I coach my clients inside Reveal and Rise. And so it wasn't like it was a weekend day where it could just go on and on and on.
Yeah.
I was like, I have a deadline here. I've only got a few hours free. Yeah, and I can remember that it was a combination for me, because I want to answer this a little bit too from a coaching perspective of um, like what was my approach and what were my intentions,
Mm-hmm.
as well as me just telling our story. And so I can remember moments of our first date where I was asking questions that were helping me understand whether or not we were compatible and whether our values aligned. And I can also remember moments where I was like, okay, I definitely have another question about that. And I definitely want to explore that more deeply. And I don't need to do that on our first date. Like this gets to be intentional where I am learning about him and I am discovering what he's into, what he's not, some of his hard yeses, some of his hard no's. And simultaneously, I wasn't like interrogating him. And, it wasn't like to the point of, well, I want all my answers because I don't want to bother going on a second date if I don't like, if I'm not sure. So there was lightheartedness and there was ease. And so there was a combination of both, but definitely more than how is this worded? Definitely more than general chit chat. And I think that comes down to as well where we were both at with our intentions with dating as well. And so for me, I wasn't going on dates just for something to do and I wasn't looking for something casual. And so, yeah, I was like very intentional and also I respect my time and I'm very intentional with my time as well. So, literally any day of the week, if I'm doing something, there is a very deeply meaningful reason behind that. Sometimes it will be to have fun. But yeah, I was going on this date to understand, is this man somebody that I could see a future with without like being super intense about it. Do you have anything to add to that?
Not really, no.
Cool.
No.
What was your favorite part of our first date?
Favorite part? I think it was just so easy to talk to.
Mm,
I think I didn't think, oh, I have to ask this question, or I have to ask that question. It was just, we just talked and then, one question followed the other and so on.
mm. Yeah, it was a very warm, easy,
Yeah.
comfortable connection
Yeah.
straight away. And I remember, so because it was a weekday and because of where I live on the Sunshine Coast, and you were coming back from further up north, having done a job.
That's right. Yeah.
And so, and because, yeah, it was a work day and I had calls, I couldn't meet Harry until maybe 1 p.m. And
Yeah.
so up here on the coast, everything is shut by 1 p.m. in terms of cafes and whatnot. And so it was this awkward period of like lunchtime, but there not being like this really easy solution as to like, I think at the start I was like, oh, why don't like you order takeaway? Like you could order takeaway for us. And then by the time it's ready and the place is closing, I can be there.
Mhm.
And then
And then I've decided to just have a picnic.
he was like,
Easy.
Harry called me the night before or sent me a message the day before and said, what if I just get us a few things and we have a picnic?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, righto. Let's see. Like, I'll probably end up with twisties or something. And he said, can I call you the night before? And I remember speaking to you on the phone and you were like, what do you like to drink? Like, can I get some juice or something? And I was like, no, he's probably going to get like fruit drink full of sugar. And you were like, do you like kombucha? And I was like, okay, this could be something. And part of the reason I share that is because, yeah, I wasn't at all convinced or certain or to any degree that this was going to be the man that, you know, I would end up in a relationship with and building a life with. And I chose intentionally, even on that day, I was like, oh, like, can I be bothered? I intentionally chose on that day to be open to the entire process of dating, which is more than just getting to go on a date with an amazing person and have a good time every time. But circling back to the conversation being warm. Anyway, I rock up and he has literally intuitively picked my favorite cheese, my favorite chocolate, my favorite dip, my favorite biscuits.
Yeah.
So like my favorite type of olives. It was like I felt almost like I was being punked. Like he'd somehow contacted one of my friends or something and was like, what is it that I should get? Anyway, the conversation was so good. And I was letting, you know, very much like leaving the space for him to lead the date. And so he was the one unpacking the food, and it was just taking forever because like the male single brain focus, he's like focusing on the conversation and being so present with me. And like something would like come out of the bag and then he'd like put it down and keep like eye contact and keep talking to him. I'm like, fuck, I'm hungry.
Well, I can't do two things at once, you know? One thing at a time.
It was amazing. It was good. I loved it.
Yeah, it was fun.
Cool. So that was our first date. The next question. Did you guys individually have any doubts about each other, or was it more like when you know, you know?
I think for me, when I went on that first date, when I saw you, I was like, oh, wow. And that was my instant reaction. And then, yeah, I think that's, I forgot the question.
Did you have any like concerns or
Oh, concerns?
reservations? Or were you
No,
like, oh, I'm not sure about this thing?
no, I didn't have any concerns. I mean, I haven't spoken to you face to face, and I think you have to get to know a person first.
Yeah. And I
But
think that's what this question is. So this isn't specific to the first date. This is more like early stages of dating when we're getting, so let's say like our first 6 dates. Did you, what's it say? Did you have any doubts? Like, were you like, oh, I'm not so sure about this, or like, I don't know if this will work?
no, I didn't have any doubt.
Mm-hmm.
No. I mean, at that time, I was just focused on building my business, and then that was the main focus. And I obviously wanted to get to know you, but there were never any doubts on my side.
Yeah. And I felt that so much from you too. Like I've shared before, how before our first date even ended, you'd ask me out
Yeah.
again. And within 48 hours, you'd made the reservation at the
Yeah.
restaurant. And because we still do live in different locations, we both move between both places though. You know, sometimes we spend it's only weekends together. Sometimes we'll get to spend, like, I'll go and stay for the whole week as well as the weekend. If we're traveling together, there's more time. But often it's long weekends, like
Most of the time.
in terms of like
Yeah.
you'll come on a Friday and leave
Currently,
on a
yeah.
Monday or vice versa. Where was I even going with this? Totally lost my train of thought.
Maybe have a look at the question.
No, it was what you were talking about building your business. You had no doubt. Oh, and I felt that from you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so on when Harry made that reservation for our second date, I couldn't see him again for 2 weeks because I was in a really, really busy project in my business. My mum and her partner were up here visiting. There was just lots happening. And I would have been overstretching and I would have, been taking on too much had I have seen you sooner, even though you kept checking if I could see you sooner.
I know.
And I'm such a big fan of like really allowing a connection to land and ground and to have processing time and reflection time. And I actually got to learn so much about you because we had that gap between our first and second date where like your communication and like your follow through and just your openness. Like we were having conversations about our first date between first and second. Like you told me multiple times how you wanted to be a dad. You might have even told me that on our first date.
Probably.
We're talking about money, we're talking about business, we're talking about travel, like all of these things that we got to talk about. And I was like, I talk as a coach about data collection in terms of yourself and your subconscious patterns and your behaviors and your coping mechanisms. But that's essentially what I was sort of getting to collect from you as well, was just like observe and like absorb without identifying with us as like, oh, this is going to be this and we are this, before there was any like grounded evidence that, so yeah, I really felt that there were no doubts from you. And I've always, like, you've just always been so consistent and just so sure and so certain, which has been really amazing. And so there was a 2-week gap between our first and second date.
Yeah.
Then our second, third, and fourth date were within like 3 or 4 days. Because I came to Brisbane, I stayed with my dad. Yeah, because our second date, you took me for dinner.
Yeah.
On a Saturday night. And then on the Sunday, you took me to the theatre to see Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
And then we went out for an early dinner after that.
Yeah.
And then had cups of tea.
Yeah.
And then I stayed in Brisbane and I worked the Monday and the Tuesday. But on the Tuesday, I think before I went home, I met you for brunch. And they were our first 3 dates.
Oh, yeah. Well, we walked like 2 kilometers to brunch. Yeah, I remember that.
There was a miscommunication about brunch.
Yeah.
And then there was me. You planned 3 amazing dates. So I was like, okay, I'm going to plan this 4th date.
Yeah.
And I thought it is within walking distance, but not the route that I selected for us to walk. And Harry was very patient and then eventually was like, we're actually going to get an Uber now, which was great because I had to be back for a call with a client anyway. And then that following weekend, you came up and stayed. And that was probably those 4, so that was 6 dates.
Yeah.
For me, I did have reservations and like I did have doubts and concerns. The main one for me, it was really only one, I'm pretty sure, was I just wasn't 100% certain we were aligned enough in the value of health, particularly when it came to growing a family. So how we wanted to do preconception, how we wanted to do pregnancy, how we wanted to do birth, how we wanted to do postpartum, and then how we wanted to raise children. And I can remember having the conversation with you as well. And I'm like, like I like plant the plants in my house are like planted in organic soil because I don't want to breathe in the toxins. And like I don't have a kettle because I don't want to heat water with a plastic element. And gave you all these weird, wacky examples. And, you know, I really took the time to be complete transparency. I was 50-50 in terms of what I expected your response to be when I presented like my vision for how I wanted to do family, but also how I live my life with health. Um, because I know I'm on like the extreme quirky end of like giving it my time, my attention. And so it was a hard conversation for me to have because I didn't know how it was going to go. And we were both already like very invested in each other um, emotionally. And I remember even on the dates, a date or two before that, you were like talking about holidays together and stuff. And I was like, fuck, I have this thing I haven't like brought up yet and I need to talk about. Um, but also just giving myself the space to figure it out. And I feel too with our connection, like intuitively, things just shift very fast. I've never experienced anything like it before. And I remember at that, on our fourth date at the cafe where I took us the wrong way, I remember that it didn't feel appropriate to have that conversation there and then because we didn't have long and we're in public and, you know, and yet you randomly start talking to me about how in Austria, like growing up, you drank raw cow's milk and like start talking a bit to me about health. And I checked with you afterwards. I was like, were you sensing that I needed to hear more of that from you? And you're like, not necessarily. So yeah. And it was really interesting because the night before Harry came up that weekend where we had that conversation about my biggest doubt, I had so much conflict around it because there was no way I was going to abandon my values and my true self and what I needed and the vision that I had, which is why, I was 37 and still single, was because my standards were high and I was so clear on wanting to be a mother and wanting to do that in a very intentional way. And so you can drink if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah, there was this like inner conflict because I just like so much of us made sense, but I didn't know if this last piece was going to come together. And I remember asking for a sign and I closed my eyes and I got this vision came through of this. I've told you this, I don't know if you remember it, this baby. And it was in a beige knitted like matching set tracksuit. And I was like, oh, that is my baby, like in beige knitted. So it was like this knowing internally. And I was like, okay, I still don't feel sure, but like I'm going to trust this sign and I'm going to lean in and I'm just going to open my heart completely and share like what's important to me and what's true for me in a loving way as opposed to like a controlling or like I don't feel like I tried to convince you of anything. I was just like, this is what I need in a partner and this is why I need it and this is why it's important and like what do you think about that? Yeah. Anything to add?
No.
I love you. So, yeah, that answers that question, I think. So it was a little bit of both. Like it was when you know, and I did have a doubt. As soon as I saw Harry on our first date, when I was still like at least 50 meters away from him, this whole warmth just like lit up my body. And I was walking toward him and he was looking at me and I was looking at him and our eyes like did not part, which it was like felt intense for me to have someone watching me and for me to watch them watching me for that amount of time as I was, and I'd never met you before. But I was just like, okay, this is something. I don't know what it is, but this is something. Okay. Who raised the idea of a future together first and how was it raised?
I can't remember. I think it was me, wasn't it? I think I raised it. I asked if you wanted to have kids. And I think it just came out. There was no specific Like I didn't think about, oh, do I have to ask this question? I don't know. It just came out.
Yeah. And I think that comes back to our intentions of dating anyone.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't necessarily like, oh my gosh, I'm into this person. And like now I have to see if they're into me. It was, I'm only interested in dating at this stage of my life to find a life partner.
Yeah.
And so if anyone doesn't know, we met online, both of our profiles were like loud and proud about that. Like, I'm looking for a life partner. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And they were the only types of profiles that I was entertaining as well, to the point of like someone was like, and I've shared this, I think, on the podcast before, but if a man around kids was like not sure, I was like, cool story. If you're in your late 30s and early 40s and you don't know the answer to that question, you're not for me. And so, yeah, I think when you go on a date with someone and their profile has said like they want kids, they're looking for a life partner, it's a bit of a given. And I remember saying to you when you asked about location and living, saying to you like, I love this location for raising kids, like being outdoors, there's so much community.
100%. I grew up in a small little town. So and I've been living in the city most of my life. And when I came up here, I was like, yeah, this is pretty awesome here. So I can definitely see myself living up here one day.
Lucky. One day.
one day soon.
That's funny because he moved some of his stuff in here this weekend. One day. I feel like I want to go off on a tangent for a moment on that, because in the past, and I do check with you sometimes, but in the past, like I don't even know if this is a word, like the flippancy, is that a word? Like
Probably,
flippant?
yeah.
Nature of language men can use sometimes, like really used to trigger me and create a lot of uncertainty within me. And part of that was I didn't have a strong sense of myself. Part of that was I also didn't have the skills to ask in a calm way, like for clarification. Yeah. And so, and part of that also was I wasn't able to trust that what they were telling me was the truth, or that it was part of their communication style. And so Harry, and we were out for brunch the other week, and you said something like about this podcast. One of our friends was asking him, and he was like, yeah, we'll see. And I was like, you don't have to do it if you don't want to. Like, but you told me you wanted to do it. What did you say?
Well, if I say we'll see, it's like, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what you shared with me was like, you were like, yeah, we'll see how it goes when I've done it. Like, do I like it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, all of those things that are now in place within myself, a strong sense of self, the communication and confidence to be able to clarify, and then the trusting of you, of like not going into this like wounded place of, hang on, like, what do you mean one day? Like, you told me you're about to move in. So
I will. Step by step.
I just feel like that's important to share, because I think a lot of women would come up against that. And like, even when we've talked about our travel plans for this year in Europe, and like you might go twice and I will go at least once. It sometimes, and I haven't even reflected this back to you, but sometimes you'll have a different plan every week. And I'm just like, sure. You're like, yeah, and I just know this is part of you, like figuring it out and bouncing ideas.
Yeah.
Even though you're like, yeah, I think I'm going to do this.
Well, I think in my position right now, I have got to figure out a way the business works and then the travel stuff works. And so it's a lot to figure out at the moment.
Yeah. And if we zoom out, I think what this conversation is about too is like letting you have the space to figure out who you are as an individual whilst also being in this relationship, and vice versa. And I think that is something that we do brilliantly. And I haven't had in the past, and I haven't been able to give in relationship in the past because there's been too much insecurity and like needing to know what things are going to look like, which just like stifles and contracts and like suppresses and suffocates.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Anything to add there?
No, that's it.
Just checking. So to circle back, who raised the idea of a future together? Yeah, it was never a question because it was always the intention of both of us from when we first started dating. And I feel like you were really strong in just inviting the connection to continue. And as an example of that, like inviting me on a second date whilst we're still on a first date. And to your credit, like a huge part of that is you're so, yeah, and I love this in the early stages of us dating. You were just like consistently like opening your heart and just like putting yourself out there over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So like willing to hear a no. Do you have anything to say about that?
Nope.
Well, can I ask you a question about it?
Sure.
Was there anything you had to work through to be able to get to that place in dating and in life where you were like, this is what I want. I'm going to see how it goes, as opposed to, fuck, that's what I want, but it feels really scary. And so like, oh, I don't know, I might do it next week.
I think you have to go through a lot of no's to actually find the right things in life.
Mm-hmm.
Like a no is not a no, it's just not now, whether it be, in business and in relationships. If someone doesn't want to go on a date with you, well, they're not meant to be with you anyway.
Mm.
So instead of actually being scared of no's, actually just embrace a no.
Mm.
Like just go for no.
Mm.
One of my early business mentors said, just go for no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Almost like seeing it like it's actually clearing, whether it's a yes or a no, it's like clearing the path
Well,
of
that's
where
right.
you want to go.
Yeah.
So both can be celebrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. That was a big approach for me in dating too, of like, well, if it's not this, it's something better.
That's right. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
No worries.
What were you afraid to let go of before moving forward together?
Afraid of.
Afraid to let go of. So another way I could ask you this is like the idea of going into a relationship, were there things that like could no longer exist because of that, or that like had to change and you had to be willing to let go of it?
No, I don't think there was anything. No, because I still do my thing. I still do my hobbies, what I love to do. But there was nothing really that I had to let go of because I had to go in a relationship.
Mm.
Oh, not because I had to go in a relationship, but because I,
Yeah.
had a relationship.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there was nothing really I had to let go of.
I think a huge part of this is like the readiness of both you and I and the willingness. Like we were both at a point where we were just like, where is that person? But like
Yeah.
without being willing to compromise and settle. And so when you're 30, well, I was 36 and you were,
I was 30.
you haven't had a birthday since we've been together.
No, 38.
Yeah. So I was 36, you were 38. Like at that stage of life, if you want to be a parent and if you want to be creating a life with someone, like you're like waiting at the door to like hand over the shit that like you would have to let go of if you haven't let it go already. Like you're just so, yeah. I was like, bring the hurdles, like bring the growth, bring the skills that will need to be learned and like the conflict and the discomfort. Like I want all of it. Like I can't wait to be like having a sleepless night because of something we're trying to navigate in a relationship together, or which I imagine would be very different maybe if we had have met like in our 20s or even in our early 30s, where our sense of self and freedom and different developmental stages are taking place.
I was definitely a different person when I was 20.
Yeah. What's an example?
Oh, just no idea about anything, not knowing myself, and yeah. And then actually in my mid 20s started to work on myself, and yeah, best investment I've ever made.
Mm. What prompted that?
At that time, I started a business and had no idea. And I was quite negative at the time as well. And my previous housemate sat me down one day and said, "Hey, I think it's time for you to do some personal development." And he said to me, "Have you ever heard of Tony Robbins?" And I'm like, "Who?"
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's when I started the
Mm-hmm.
whole journey
Yeah.
of personal growth.
And what was one of the biggest shifts you can remember that made the biggest change or difference for you around that time?
I started to, and this may sound a bit weird and stupid, but I started to visualize stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, everything that was one year, everything I wrote down on my goal card or in my journal, literally everything happened. And without even checking my journal at the end of the year.
Mm.
But then I opened it up at some point and I was like, wow, this actually happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're a very strong manifester,
Yeah.
very magnetic. Cool. What even was that? Oh, what were afraid to let go of anything? I don't think I was afraid to let go of anything, but something part of the transition that I found challenging, if anything, was because we haven't lived in the same location. We might one day.
We will. We will very soon.
Because we lived in different locations, like where I live and the lifestyle I've designed, I was with my girlfriends most days, whether that was, a chai at like 6 or 7 a.m. before starting work, or a lunchtime swim, or a dance class, or a yoga class, or like group medi on Monday nights, which I still go to a lot of the time. But yeah, there was, and like co-working a lot as well. We would work from each other's places or go to the library. And a reason why my life had so much space for that was because on the weekends, there was a lot of space as well. And so, yeah, just that transition of, some weekends I'm not even in the physical location. And when I'm coming back, the chores that might have like sporadically got done over the weekend haven't been done. So there's not as much time and energy for being out with girlfriends and whatnot. Um, Also, I really, since we've been together, I've barely worked many weekends at all, I would say, like maybe 5. Whereas I used to have that luxury of like midweek, if I just wanted to do half a day, then I would work the weekend instead. Or yeah, so I think that has like I really missed my girlfriends a lot, and I still do at times. Um, And it's a choice, right? Like I know immediately you'd be like, just tell me, babe, like just go do it. Like go home early from Brisbane or and when you're here, like I want to be present with you. And I think actually the other thing, it all kind of comes down to I was naturally, I think when you're in your 30s, especially, and particularly your mid to late 30s and you're single, you know, and you want to live a certain lifestyle, you're living a lifestyle that two people are normally contributing to, not just bills, but also like the running of a house and the cooking and
And the dishes.
all of these sorts of things. And yeah, I just think that adjustment and then wanting to be present with you on the weekends, but still needing time for myself, that's what's been hardest is I've often felt conflicted where I'm like, fuck, like I really want to be in community and I haven't had any time to myself yet because of us living in separate locations, it's not like we spend Friday night and Saturday together and then you go off and you go home and do your own thing Saturday night or whatever, and then we catch up again Sunday afternoon and I've had my own time and friend time. Something like that's so amazing about you and I really value about our connection is you're so open and comfortable to just like jumping into like group catch-ups with my friends, even if sometimes you're the only man and like you get so much attention because all the women love you. But like, you know, you've made that so easy. But that's definitely been the hardest part for me. And I wouldn't change it for the world. It was always going to be hard. And I think it will get so like it already is easier, but it will be like taken care of once we live together and we're not spending a couple of hours every weekend either like packing up, unpacking, 3 hours minimum in transit. Yeah.
Next question.
Next question. I have no idea how long we've been going for, do you?
No, me neither.
Okay, that's all right. Okay, we're into the second section.
Let's do it.
Okay, when you live together, one day, one day, when you live together, how will you navigate bills and house chores?
I think that's a very easy question to answer. I'd like to take over everything. Yeah, I mean, you're doing the cooking. I'll do all the cleaning, which I don't have a problem with. But yeah, cooking is not my thing. And when it comes to like bills and stuff, I mean, obviously I'm taking over that. So
Yeah, which is so like so attractive and sexy to me, that desire you have to provide a life for us and for our family as well. And that's not to say I'm retiring or I'm being retired. I was reflecting on this yesterday because I'd seen the questions because I put them in a category so that this conversation kind of flowed. And what I would say is that I have a very, very innate, undeniable desire to create a home and nurture and be extremely present with our children and to take care of some of the things that take a long time and are important for our health, like cooking. And like a lot of you will know, like I cook from scratch and it's, you know, it's like fruit, veggies, meat, some grains, and like whole nourishing food. But when I reflect, because yeah, as I said, it's not like I won't work, but what it does is it really puts my work into the category that is actually most meaningful for me, and that is of contribution, like helping women improve their lives, helping women go from feeling hopeless and stuck and just like, you know, for me, when I was in that stage, it was like, I can't continue to live like this. Like, this is not functional and like this is not okay. And I know I can thrive and I know I can like have this capacity and this capability within me. I just don't know how to, you're fine.
Don't.
I just don't know how to access that and I don't know how to bring that to life and I don't know how to do it in a consistent way. And, you know, at different times, whether that was like my mental health and I was having panic attacks, or I was just feeling so flat and depressed, or so trapped in certain relationships, or confused by why, you know, certain friendships didn't work, or why I always needed people to like me, or yeah, why dating wasn't turning out how I wanted it to, but also family relationships, why they were so triggering and difficult. But then everything too, to like starting a business and growing a business and continuing to expose myself and put myself out there in the domain of helping people, but also being judged. And like that's forever. Like that only continues to invite me more and more forward. And so that's what, you know, I was trying to think of a profession that I could contrast it with. And I wanted to do this in such a like mindful, respectful, delicate way as to not like disrespect. And so one of the things that made me think of is like, let's say my job was like data entry, and all I did all day was sit in front of a computer and like type shit into a computer. And maybe I was entering details into a database of a company that was changing lives and there was still meaning in it. But like, if that was my job, that would be completely different to what I feel is like the essential nature and responsibility and duty. Laura is really great at using that word of like, this gift and this contribution is my duty to improve the lives of others, but also improve the collective and where we're all at as well. And so, yeah, my work, in the vision we have for our relationship and how we want to pool our resources and create a lifestyle from that, my work really gets to become even more, it already is, but even more so about contribution and helping and guiding. And so, yeah, I think too, just on another note, did you have anything you wanted to say on what I just shared?
No?
I think on another note, I sense that this question has been asked from the perspective of like, well, we don't live together. So right now, like, you take care of your life, I take care of mine, you take care of your house, I take care of my house. When in actual fact, like, that's just not the case at all. Like, on the weekends, like I cook and prep all of our meals and Harry takes them home. And like after every meal, every time I cook, Harry is like doing the cleaning. And we buy our produce together at the markets, and you already pay for most of that. And yeah, it's already very much a like
It's a team effort.
Yeah. And if anything, I feel like I know the cooking like takes a long time, but I feel like you do more for us in terms of chores than what I do.
It's not, I mean, doesn't matter who does what, as long as we do the whole amount together. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I do 90% and you do 10%, it's fine with me. As long as we get together 100%.
Yeah, it's the attitude and the energy. And I think also the appreciation and the acknowledgement as well.
Yeah.
And you were just such a rock salt, like you thrive and genuinely desire to provide.
Yeah.
Like you're at your best in that.
Yeah.
And I can't speak for you. And like when, let's say that does play out where you're doing 90% and I'm doing 10%, which is not playing out.
No, it's not. But
like, is there resentment there, or like, what's the energy for you then?
No, I don't think about that. I have no issues giving 100% all the time.
What is it that inspires that within you to give 100% in our relationship? Like, if you were to say, like, here's why I want to do this, what is that?
I don't know. I've always been that kind of person who wants to help from, I think, since I was born. I was the tallest kid at school and I always wanted to help the smaller ones. Like, I don't know. It's just something that's been with me all my life.
Yeah. I want to contrast, and I 100% agree because you're one of the most generous people I've ever met. And I want to contrast that with like, if someone crosses you, you're like, fuck that, like get fucked. So it's not like this pleaser, like
No. It's not like that.
no, it's like love. And actually, I don't know if I've shared this with you before, but my girlfriends from the first time that they've met you, and even now they will still say it after hanging out. One of the things, the most common thing I hear them reflect back about you is you just have such a big, warm heart.
I appreciate that.
And I think that comes back to what I was saying around our first date and when we were first dating as well, is like you're just so willing to love. Yeah. Uh, yeah. and your business, a commercial cleaning business. And so
Yeah.
it's also like I don't know if you describe it like this, but I'm like, it's an interest of yours. It's a skill set of yours.
I wouldn't say an interest, but I think it's definitely a need.
Yeah.
And I've seen, I don't know if you want to know why I started it, but the reason I started it was I've seen in my apartment how people clean, and I'm like, this is just not good enough. So I think I've seen with my business partner together, I think we've seen something that we can be successful at.
Yeah, and do better than
and
what
just
is currently being done.
do a better quality than with current people that are out there doing it. I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong, but it's just and we hear it from people that we work with. You know, they give us a lot of work and they like us, and the common feedback that's, you guys are just good.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. I also, something else that just popped into my mind while I was listening to you speak as well is this comes back to compatibility and values. You know, like from the moment I walked into your home for the first time, I was like, this is what my home looks like. You know, it's clean, it's clutter-free.
No IKEA furniture.
On our first date, he was like, one of the things I'm most proud of is there's no IKEA furniture in my house. I'm like, I feel judged.
Nothing against IKEA though, but yeah.
It's like, why don't I just get you some shelves from IKEA for over there? I'm like, right. So my house that you're apparently moving into can have IKEA furniture, but not yours. Yeah. And so I think that it's so easy to underestimate or just dismiss these qualities in the person you're considering as a partner. And so, like, if it's really important to you that you want to live in a certain way, probably consider that from early on, or like have a conversation and leave room for people to grow and to realize, oh wow, yeah, I actually do want to improve this part of my life, or I do want to do this differently. It's not that they have to be perfect and be doing it the same way that you would do it straight away. Cool.
Next question.
Next question. Okay. Do doubts ever come up about each other? And if so, is it ego or feelings? Okay, I'm going to reword this question for you. So, do doubts ever come up about each other? And they're asking, if so, are they like legitimate doubts or is it like fear? And then I'll ask you the second part after.
I never had any doubts about us.
Yeah, but what about like over the whole 8 months? Has there?
Never.
Yeah.
No. Not one single second. No, it's true.
I know, honey. Yeah.
Not one single second.
Can you elaborate on that? Like, what is there something that has been present, and I even mean within you, that has caused that to be the case? Because as this question shared, like you're sharing, there's been no legitimate doubts and there's been no fear-based doubts of like self-sabotage or whatnot. Yeah, is there anything that explains for you like how that is the case?
I think it comes back to when we're dating.
Mm.
You got to think about that one.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I don't know. There were never any doubts.
Yeah.
I mean,
What if I ask you this? Why were there no doubts?
Because I knew you work on yourself. I just knew you work on yourself and you do the same thing as I do. So it would have been different if you're like, don't work on yourself and, and just have a complete different mentality. But you had the same mentality. We're both into health and we both just have the same values too. And if someone has different values, then I'm like, that might be a doubt.
Yeah.
But because of that, I didn't have any doubts.
And I think for both of us, two of like my highest value above everything is truth. And I think that's a very high value for you too. Like you are so clean with how you answer questions and how you share about what's going on for you. Like I've never met a man before, and maybe even a person before. You just let me in on so much, and I don't even ask for it. And a lot of that comes from how self-assured you are and the work that you've done. And the other value that links into that is growth. And I think we are just like so tight and rock solid on both sharing that value. I would say like to the same intensity. Like, yeah, I've never felt like either of us has like lagged or fallen short on that or tried to sweep it under the rug. And like honest conversations are always welcome. I remember you sitting at the dining table there one night after dinner and saying to me, like, you challenge me so much. And it's like so challenging sometimes. And I love it. Like, it's so important. And I want you to keep doing it. Yeah. Mm. So, yeah, I would say for me, doubts. I wouldn't say there was only one major thing that I needed to see more of from you, that definitely created some doubts, but never doubts where I was like, I need to leave this relationship or I need to end this. And we had a series of like open conversations about it, and you were just like continuously showing up more and more and more. And honestly, like one of the things that has blown me away about you is and it's the growth, like it's as a value, it's how fast you respond to what is right for the relationship. So not what I'm demanding from you or who I'm telling you to be, but I share it from this perspective of like, this is the shared vision that we have. And I'm concerned about how this part's going to go if we don't, or if you don't, or if I don't address this thing that could become a problem. And yeah, you have like, I already have, I think, one of the strongest unshakable beliefs in the potential of any human being. And somehow you have like turned the dial up on that for me. Yeah. And so the second part of the question was like determining which is which. Like, is this a fear-based doubt or is this a legitimate doubt? And then taking responsibility for it. And I feel like we kind of answered that in terms of like everything is a conversation. Like, I don't think I know there never has been any instance where either of us has been like, I don't want to talk about that, or we can't talk about that. And so when we see something in one another that can be lovingly shared as like something to be looked at, we do that and we welcome that. Would you add to anything around that?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Cool. The next question is, how do you approach conflicts where, do you need to have a break?
No.
You're good?
Yeah.
How do you approach conflicts where you each have a different truth or version of an event?
If there was a conflict that we had, I don't think we had anyone. Do we have one? I can't remember.
We have conflicts, but they are conversations like this.
Yeah.
And so I think it doesn't feel like we've had conflicts because we don't fight and we don't yell at each other and they don't escalate and we're not mean to each other.
I think I think if we ever have a conflict one day, like a proper,
yeah,
I would actually just get your side of the story and look at that. I always say like have a bird's eye view
Mhm.
I would just look at that and just try and to understand it
Mhm.
and then talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, and I don't know if I've ever like shared this so like in such a straightforward, like factual way. Uh, it happened the other weekend where I will, I'll feel that you've like forgotten me or you're just like so absent, or you'll just say something really insensitive or just like stupid, or you'll forget about something really important. And early on in our relationship, that would piss me off a lot. Like I was like, what the fuck, man? Like, get your shit together. And that only had to happen a couple of times because you stay calm. And I don't, would you even say that I was like that dysregulated or explosive or like
Let's just call it a little explosive.
explosive? So I would call explosive like yelling.
No, you're not. You never yell.
Yeah.
No. But I
And
can see some steam. I can see some steam coming up.
energetic steam.
Yeah.
And so the thing that I got to notice in you is instead of just fixating on how I was feeling in my body or what that experience was like for me, and instead of just fixating on feeling let down or forgotten or like disappointed, similar to what you said with the bird's eye view, like I was genuinely interested. I'm like, what is going on here for this to have taken place? And because your heart is so big, like you never want to, it's so obvious to me that bottom line, you're never wanting to hurt me. You're never wanting to upset me. And that's not just words, because outside of these conflicts, there's so much evidence of it. And so, yeah, there's a pattern in our relationship where things get really stressful for you at work, or you're holding a lot of uncertainty or risk. And I'm like, am I like in a relationship on my own? And like you might physically be there. And sometimes it will still catch me. Like, last week you said something really insensitive, but you were trying to be funny, but it just didn't land. And I'm like so inquisitive about what is actually going on here beyond me. And every single time I do that, you end up sharing like, fuck, like it doesn't feel manly to share this, but like I'm so worried about this, or I'm so concerned about this, or like I don't know how to approach this thing. And do you want to maybe talk a little bit about what that's like for you when you get to have that conversation?
Well, yeah, as you said, it's not very, I don't feel very manly saying these things. Um, but yeah, I don't know, I just say it.
And how do you feel then?
Oh, I feel much, much better than. Yeah.
I remember the first time I bought that approach. I was like sitting on the top of the stairs up there, FaceTiming you, and you were walking along the river in Brisbane, like stressed out of your brains. And you were like, I feel like you've just like, how did you explain it? You're like, I feel like a weight has just been lifted off me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And for you, like something I've gotten to learn, and we can cut this bit out if you don't want me to share it, but is that you haven't had a lot of relationships in your life where you've been able to share that openly, or that like someone's been interested in listening.
Yeah.
And so that really required me to like invite the space for you to do that, and for me to be willing to listen rather than be right or tell you what you should do to fix it, because you don't need to know that. Like you're so fucking capable. Um, and so I sense and I see, there was another time where you forgot about something really important to me and you were like, I didn't forget, I just wasn't thinking about it or something like that. And to me, I'm like, that's the same fucking thing. But when I got to understand more about you, I was like, oh, to you, they're not the same thing. And And so, yeah, the more I've gotten curious about what's actually going on for you when I'm not getting the Harry that like feels most connected and feels most amazing and most sensitive and most in tune, then we don't have a fight because we just have the conversation and I get to become more in tune with like all the shit you're holding and all the shit you're thinking about. And so, yeah, now I can be more for you. And it's not dissimilar to the chores, really. You know, when you talk about the 90 and the 10%, like whoever has the capacity in the relationship to notice and be aware of what's needed and to bring love to that, that's that person's role. And it's not, yeah, both are showing up at 100% in that, even though one person might be seeing 90% of what's going on and leading the other person into it.
When I say the 90-10, I don't mean that you got to bring 100 and I got to bring 100, but combined we got to bring. There might be some days where you like bring a 70 and I'll bring a 30, like,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I knew that's what you meant. I was more applying it then to like, so that's like a category of like household chores. And the conversation we're having now is like a category of like the emotional regulation of the relationship or the connection of the relationship. And I think something that a lot of women can resent, and I've definitely resented in the past and had to work on as well, is that as the feminine, you're so much more attuned and tapped into your intuition that you're going to be able to sense things you can't even necessarily explain. And I've resented like the weight, and I like something I really craved for a long time was just like a man that could meet me in like equal partnership with that. Like, why can't they identify what's happening in the relationship sometimes? Why can't they bring the emotionally intelligent conversation? And it's just that we have different qualities that we're bringing. Yeah.
That's right.
Cool. Do you feel that's answered that question?
Yeah.
Yeah. The next question is, how do you repair after conflict?
How do I repair after?
Do you know what that means? Because it's a very like industry word, repair.
Repair, like
come back into connection.
Yeah. I mean, I think chocolate would help. Chocolate definitely helps. And yeah, kissing would definitely help. Yeah, I don't know. I think these two.
Goodness.
I think chocolate and kissing definitely helps.
Yeah. You're always like, come here and give me a hug.
Yeah.
Like you're invested and so am I. But, you know, as a woman, I have my emotions are bigger. But you're always you're like, I just want you to come back to feeling loved as quickly as possible without us like skimming over anything or sweeping anything under the rug. Like a genuine feeling of reconnecting.
Yeah. And making you laugh. That's just the easiest thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But physical touch is important for sure.
Of course. Yeah.
Cool. How much is enough time to feel good in a relationship? I think they're asking like, oh, actually, I was assuming they were asking how much time together, you know, how much time spending together is enough time to feel good in a relationship.
I don't think there's a specific time. As long as you do the things that you love to do, you'll have enough time for things in a relationship. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like if I do the things I want to do, then I want to be with you. But if I can't do the things that I love to do outside of work, then I'm like, this is just too much. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's got to be that freedom. And, you know, one of the conversations that we had earlier on in our relationship too was like of these 3 circles, like 1, 2, 3. And they're like the middle circle is the relationship. Can you do your hands as a circle that like just overlinks a little bit? And then like that's Harry coming in on this side, and then I'm the same on the other side. And so like there's an overlapping where we're both in the relationship, but we're also individuals as well. And when we feel full and alive and energized and excited and lit up by our own lives outside of the relationship thrives.
Yeah.
We've got shit to actually talk about and like update each other on and teach each other and learn about each other. And there's times where I'm like, particularly this last year now, with the study that I've been doing in Vedic knowledge, and it's called Rishi training, like nothing you understand or know anything about, and yet you're just so supportive and interested. And even when I explain it and it still doesn't make sense, you're like, the joy is that you're getting to see me happy and lit up. And it's the same when you go and play soccer, or when you go to the gym with the boys, or like do your ice bath or your sauna or whatever. It's attractive, and it creates this polarity, and it creates desire. Like you want to have the opportunity to miss each other in a relationship. And that's actually something that has at times been challenging, because like on the weekends, like that's when we've got time to spend together. And then during the weeks, it's like nothing sometimes. But yeah, how much time is enough? It comes down to the individuals and like, what's the lifestyle you want to live? And something, we were out for brunch with friends, another couple last week, and they asked us about, I don't know, like, I think they asked something around moving timeline, like moving in together, or like pregnancy, or I don't know. But one of the reflections I gave them was, even when we're not together, I feel so connected. And I really feel that's because we have a shared vision for our relationship. And when we're not together, we are as individuals developing and progressing that shared vision. We don't have to be together to develop that. Like we're building our businesses, we're building our community, we're building our health. We are doing the things that we want to do before we get to the next stage of like, one of the reasons I'm going to India is because going to India now is I want to do that before we start a family. And so, yeah, I just think it's the shared values, like the fact that we both value truth, we both value growth. I just feel so connected to you even when we're not together. And I know that I trust you as well. And I think it can vary and like have seasons where like you are craving more time together, and then you don't need as much time together. But we both value freedom as well.
I don't think there's a particular time.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
What I would say, and like if you're asking this question, is checking in and asking like, what within myself has me wanting more time or has me wanting less time in this connection? And if you can begin to articulate, like we've just shared some of the words that are values that either drive the time that we want apart or drive the time that we want together, that will help you make sense of the internal experience that you're having, and just give you a couple of lines to a map that you can begin exploring. There will probably be more to it than that. But it's a great starting point. Like values can be so relieving when we really nail the word that describes what's creating sensations or desires or conflict or challenges and problems within us. We just have so much information about what needs to happen next. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
So good.
What compromises have we had in our relationship apart from the distance?
Did we have any compromises? We probably did. I just can't think of any right now.
Nothing huge, I would say. Things like, you spent Christmas with my family this year, so you didn't spend it with yours.
Yeah.
Things like, like maybe when you're up here on weekends, you're not getting to do things with the boys back in Brisbane.
True.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
But they're not, one of the things that I talk about in coaching is aligned compromises, which brings a lot of empowerment, because it takes it from being this thing that you're missing out on or that you have to let go of to something that you're actually choosing and that is actually an essential part of you getting to where you want to go. And sometimes what can happen without us realizing is there's this path we need to journey down to get to the end result. And there's no avoiding or skipping over parts of that. But in our head, we're telling ourselves we can. We can be like, yes, I'll do that part, but not that part. And we still want to get to the end. And so, yeah, with aligned compromises, it's been things like, for me, it's been, in the early stages of starting business, like I moved back in with both of my parents at different times so that I didn't have to pay double rent at a clinic that I was practicing out of, or I could invest in a coach or invest in a business instead of paying rent. Yeah, yeah. I think at the end of the day, of course, we would both prefer to be dating someone that lived like around the corner, but it just was never even a question for us. Like,
No,
it never even came up as a conversation, which is so funny.
because I've only have a tiny little suitcase that I have to pack and not a whole house, so easy for me to move.
And I think we were both ready to see the value in a partner that is aligned for the long term rather than needing convenience in the short term. Which is funny because before the last guy I went on a date with before you lived only 30 minutes south, and I was like, oh, so inconvenient because it just wasn't a connection that inspired me or that bought the concept of the future. Whereas I never even thought twice about us. Mm. How you doing?
Good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's not too many more.
that's right.
Have a little sip.
So,
Actually, there's only two more questions.
okay.
So the next one is, what are three things you love about each other? And this was this like equal first most popular question. Quite a few people ask this.
Do you want me to start? Well, there are actually a million things, but if I would tell them all, we're going to be sitting here tomorrow. But three things that I love about you. Well, you're a very good cook. I love that she cooks. Her food's amazing. What's another one? That we both have the same love language.
Do we?
Yeah. Well, maybe not ranked the same way, but we both value that.
Which you mean we both value your love language?
That's correct. That's correct. And I just love that. Put me on the spot here.
Well, I can do some if you want to come back, but
Nah, I can just. There are millions, but there's a lot of them. But right now, it's like put on the spot. Yeah, let's come back to that one. I'll think about it.
And this has been a real, thank you for sharing those things. And for you, this has been from the start of our relationship to now, not something that's come naturally to you to I feel loved by you all the time. And it's undeniable that there's 100 things you love about me, but you finding the words for that. And I laughed at you saying that we have the same love language because Harry's is physical touch. Mine is words of affirmation. And yeah, it's been a road and a journey for you to and I so appreciate you working on it. Can I tell the story about my birthday?
Go on. Go on.
So, my birthday last year, Harry was not going to be here. He was going to be in Brisbane because he was working on the actual day of my birthday. So he did some really special things for me the weekend before and bought me a card, and it was left here. And then he'd also booked me in for a massage or a facial or both the day of my birthday. In the end, he ended up coming up and taking me out for breakfast on my birthday as well, because I felt sad that we weren't together. But the whole week I'd just been like, oh, I can't wait to open this card on my birthday. I'm so excited. My love language is words of affirmation. And anyway, intuitively the night before, was it the night before? Maybe even a little bit, 2 nights before. I got this feeling and I was like, hang on a minute, babe. Be like realistic and in touch with this man's strengths, which he has many, many, many of. There might, maybe this card isn't going to be good. Anyway, I opened the card. What did it say?
Well, it said a lot of things, but
It did. It said quite a few things.
yeah, but my handwriting was not that much.
But the things they were printed by the card maker. I think your handwriting said, I love you. Love Harry.
Love you, Harry.
Love you, Harry.
Love you, Harry. That's what it says.
And this was another one of those examples that I talked about before with like me really leading in the emotional regulation and taking care of the emotional part of our relationship of like, I didn't get what I wanted in that moment. And I could have easily taken that to mean that I wasn't seen, I wasn't loved, he wasn't making an effort, he wasn't right for me. And I was able to simultaneously, well, intuitively, I anticipated it at the last minute, which really helped to soften it a little bit, but simultaneously, like, hold the disappointment and also, like, really focus on all the amazing things he was doing in different ways to love me, even though they weren't my love language. And share with him how much that was. And then, after my birthday, there were all these cards with like essays written on them. And
Yeah, and I was like, oh.
Because all of my girlfriends know, and they're women, right? But yeah. And so, yeah, I appreciate you saying those things. They're a big deal.
Yeah, you're welcome.
What I love about you, one of the things I love so fucking much about you is how responsible you are, like in terms of who you say you are is who you are. Like such a high level of integrity, such high level of responsibility for the impact that you have when you move through the world. Like how you engage with me, how you engage in your business, how you engage with the barista, the effort and attention you make with my family, my niece and nephews, my friends. When something has happened that upsets me or hurts me, like your genuine fucking desire to take responsibility of it, for it to fix it and like hear about it. Any times, and there's been many, that I've like lovingly called you forward in our relationship of like, I have this desire for like more here or this to look different. Like every fucking time you take it on and like you reflect about it and you figure out how you want to approach it and why it's important to you. And then you just show up and like you have never represented or implied to me that you're someone that you're not. You've never told me that you're going to do something and then not done it and not followed through on it. And truth, trust, honesty, they're like my highest values. So like I absolutely love that about you. And it just means what I get from that and what it provides me is so much freedom and like relaxation and ease because I just know you're reliable and you're dependable and shit is just taken care of. So that's one thing. Something else that I love about you, definitely your humor. It's seriously such a gift, especially in our relationship. Like you get away with, or like you diffuse moments that could become conflict by, bringing humor. Like whether you're making fun of yourself, whether you're making fun of me, but in a respectful way. And there's just so much fun and playfulness. So I absolutely love that about you as well. And then definitely your generosity. Like your heart is so big. You're always interested in like, yesterday you went across to our neighbors and just cleaned his carpets because he made a comment that shared his interest with you in how to get carpets cleaned. Like, yeah, you're just so generous. And it's just not a question as to whether, if someone needs something or if someone needs help, it's just like you're there. And I really, really love that about you too.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Another thing I love about you, the whole time I literally thought about what's another thing I love about you.
So funny. I'm like, he's probably not even listening.
No, it wasn't really. Another thing I love about you. I mean, there's so much.
That's okay if you can't think of
I
anything
can't think
right
of
now.
anything right now
That's
on the
okay.
spot. I'm sure it'll come to me.
You can tell me later
Yeah,
with a side of chocolate.
sure.
Cool. Um, and then the last question I have here is more a question for me. This is going on, so I feel like we will do a separate one on online dating if you're open to that. Or if you don't want to do it, I can do it. The question came through as, what are your thoughts on men and porn? Are you okay with it, G, as in me? Are you or would you be okay with having a partner with who watches porn? So here's my thoughts on this, and I'd love for you to chime in at any point if you feel called. That behavior or that compulsion or that addiction is one tool that meets a core human need. And so primarily, especially in the earlier stages of our evolution and our inner work, the core needs that are going to be dictating how we are expressing, how we are behaving, the choices that we are making are certainty. And so certainty can sound like also safety, predictability, the known. Yeah. And so things that are predictable and known aren't always going to be the most rewarding choices or the most healthy choices, but they're known. We know how it goes. And so this is a big part of, any addiction that shows up, like alcohol even, right? Like that person can genuinely desire, or emotional eating, that person can genuinely desire not to do that thing. And yet, because they haven't figured out yet another way to feel certain, to create predictability, which translates as comfort, and this is to the nervous system, not to the logical brain, then they need to keep using that behavior, right? So certainty is one, love and connection is another. So let's go back to porn and men specifically. If that man does not feel like he has the sense of self or the confidence or the ability or the skills to hear the no's, that we're talking about earlier on, or that, if he has had experiences where he's been taught or shown that he's not worthy or that he's been rejected, it's a very easy route to getting that need met of love and connection. Yeah. So that's what I think about it. I think it's a choice, it's a behavior that is serving a need. And that if we want to change it, we need to get deeper into the subconscious programming, the nervous system responses, and the psychology of the specifics for that individual of how that broad behavior of porn, alcohol, emotional eating, overworking, overachieving is meeting that broad need of certainty, love and connection or significance. Because, I think the more that information is more easily available on podcasts like this, on short workshops, self-help books, YouTube, online, we can learn the general subconscious patterns of like, oh, I emotionally eat so that I'm overweight, so that I feel protected because men won't find me attractive, right? Like, cool, that's not specific enough to help an individual. We need to get into like, what's her history or what's his history, and at a subconscious level. So not that they're logically, intellectually aware of. That's where results happen with inner work, and these shifts can take place. So that's to answer the first part of this question in terms of what are my thoughts on men and porn. Do you have anything to add to that?
Nope.
Cool. And then, are you or would you be okay with a partner who watches porn? I think from like the conversation that we've had here around what our values are, and, you know, growth in particular being a key core value, and for my embodiment, meaning like I am that. I show up as the qualities that I want in a partner. I am at a stage with my inner work and my evolution and my development where I can offer what I'm wanting in return, right? And so no, where I'm at, it's not a relationship or a partnership that I would consider, especially given my age, my desire to have a family, my intention, like the importance I place around the role models, and particularly the father model that I want for the children that I'll be raising. And what I want to say about this, and I say this on the podcast very often, is these are not conversations about shaming or judging or right or wrong. This conversation is about values set, and it's also about awareness of why is something happening and what are we prepared to do about it. And the man who's prepared to do something about that, you know, what is the future and the vision of the relationship that he will be able to lead a woman and a family into, versus a man who's like, you know, like, I'm actually okay with this. Like, I actually don't have a problem with this. It's not about the porn. It's about the general like approach or attitude to self-improvement or contribution or being a role model as well. And, you know, a desire and a willingness and an openness to be better is such an incredible quality. And everybody is a work in progress. Harri and I are works in progress.
100%.
It's that we are similar works in progress, as opposed to me needing to be his teacher or him needing to be my fixer because I collapse and I don't take responsibility for my inner work and where my wounds are showing up and where conditioning of limiting beliefs and, you know, my needs not being met are showing up because I haven't learned yet or taken responsibility for figuring out how to do that myself. Yeah. Anything to add?
Nope, that's pretty much it.
What about for the overall conversation? Is there anything you want to like share with the women watching this?
Well, I'm still thinking of one thing I love about you. Still thinking about that. No, I don't think there's anything I want to add.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Cool. I think this is an amazing time to wrap this one up. Thank you for contributing all the questions that have stimulated this conversation. If you're watching this on YouTube, please leave a comment below about your biggest takeaway, or if you've got a question that you would like us to answer, pop it below, and maybe I can do that on my Instagram stories, or, you know, in another few months, we can do another episode like this. And if you're watching on, or if you're listening rather, feel free to come across to Instagram and share with me your biggest takeaway then. Hey, my love, it's me again. Before we do properly finish up, I just wanted to remind you that I'm gifting you for the next 2 weeks 50% off my do-it-yourself short course, which is called Responding to Overwhelm, Fear, and Anxiety. This course has 7 different teachings, and in each teaching you get a video or audio teaching lesson, whichever you prefer to learn by. There is a downloadable workbook with implementation exercises, and there is also a guided somatic practice as well. Check out the show notes. I'm going to put the code in there as well as the link of where you can find this course, and enjoy.